now that I'm in the position, the insanely fortunate position to be able to pick and choose the roles I want to do. I hope I'm picking good and interesting and challenging things like being the Ricardos.
And the yellow M&M.
And the yellow M&M, of course, now and forever. Lucille.
Yeah?
Come with me for a drink.
It's 10 a.m.
I'm sure it's 10:15 somewhere.
We have to be back on stage.
I wonder if they'll wait for you.
Bill.
Kid.
No.
Tell the stage Mrs. Arnaz is taking some personal time and she'll be back when she's back.
Probably 15 minutes.
Yes, ma'am.
And you should remind props that I need garden shears in the opening scene.
Copy.
Let's go.
We have to establish right away that I'm setting a fancy table.
You don't have to explain
We'll have
it to
flowers in a vase. I'll cut one of the flowers.
He doesn't care.
It'll be too short. I'll cut the other flowers. They'll be too short, and so on.
Got it.
So I need garden shears.
Copy.
Regular scissors aren't strong enough to cut through the stems.
He's thinking a lot about killing you now.
Fine.
Welcome to the actor's side today. Oh my gosh, he's won every award in the book. And Oscar winner, Golden Globe winner, SAG winner, everything for Whiplash, many other things. And now nominated again, second Academy Award nomination as William Frawley in Being the Ricardos. Welcome, J.K. Simmons. Hi.
Thank you, Pete. How are you?
I'm very good, and congratulations on the Oscar nomination. You're also great in this movie. It's such a wonderful ensemble, I think.
Yeah, it really is, and I've been, touting how good. There are 64 actors who are billed as principal characters in this movie, and honestly, I think everybody knocked it out of the park.
They really did, and it must be interesting. Have you ever played an actor? Being an actor, playing a role before?
Never. Well, unless you count, Midsummer Night's Dream, being one of the Tinkers playing Bottom. But no, it was a really interesting and challenging and kind of initially frightening, actually, challenge that I kind of shied away from. And despite the fact that, that it was Aaron and that it was this great cast that he was putting together, I was frankly afraid of it. And Aaron kind of talked me off the ledge. He basically had to talk all four of us. Well, no, that's not true. Javier was all over it. Javier was dying to do it. But Nicola and Nina and I all had a little trepidation about it.
Were you a Lucy fan? Did you, like me, grow up being obsessed by I Love Lucy and watching it all the time?
I'm not going to use the O word like you just did, but yeah, I was a fan of the show for sure. And I was the only one of the four of us, who was born in the 50s. So I was actually born when the show was still in its original run. But yeah, I have strong and fond memories of watching it on mom and dad's crappy old black and white TV, and then over at my grandparents' house as well.
Wow. William Frawley was a great character actor. He was in all these little roles and here and there. And then this just exploded. And suddenly he became a household name. I'm wondering, from your perspective as an actor, to have that happen in your career at that point, and suddenly, a whole new audience is seeing you.
Well, it wasn't that big a stretch for me because, I'm a crabby old bald white guy playing a, crabby old bald white guy who started out on stage, as I did for 20 years. Bill did vaudeville and Broadway, and then small roles in film, as I started out with, and then found his way into a higher profile job. So there were a lot of similarities there for sure.
Wow. What was it like having that kind of dialogue presented to you in a script like this by Aaron Sorkin?
It's just any actor who has had the opportunity to work with Aaron will, I'm virtually certain, tell you the same thing. It's a gift. It's an absolute gift and a challenge in the best possible way. All four of us, not just the four of us. I mean, again, it's such a wonderful cast, and Tony Hale and Alia and Jake and so many people who were wonderful in this, and we had lots of conversations, in our downtime about just how grateful and how blessed we were to be speaking the words of the maestro.
Yeah. Did you have to do any special research for this beyond having a script there sort of leading you the way? Or, what did you put into it, personally into playing Bill Frawley?
No, absolutely. And again, all of us, I think, put lots of research into this. And I'm not usually, if there's no specific reason, to research a character, that's not usually part of how I prepare. I just see what's on the page and go do it. But yeah, in this case, I felt really woefully underinformed about who Bill was, aside from Fred Mertz. And fortunately, one of my close friends in New York, a casting director, Alan Filderman, the day it was announced that I was playing William Frawley, he called me and said, "All right, I got like 6 books that you need to come over, get on your bicycle, get up to my place, and bring your backpack, and you got to read these books and learn about Bill Frawley." And it was interesting because Bill was a pretty low profile, kind of shied away from showbiz. He liked to hang out with baseball players and jockeys and barflies.
Yeah.
He didn't have a family, so he didn't leave the kind of legacy. He didn't write a book or any of that. So everything I learned about him was from Lucille's perspective, from her book, or Desi's book, books about Vivian Vance, interviews with Jess Oppenheimer, who's Tony Hale plays in the movie, which in a way I think proved to be more valuable than having written material by him saying, this is me and this is how I felt about things. But having all of those different people really present very similar views of who Bill was,
Yeah.
even though Vivian hated him.
That comes across in the movie quite clearly. Yeah. You and Nina Arianda, I have to say, she should have been nominated too. I just
Absolutely.
think she would. You two are so funny, not just on the behind the scenes, but in the recreations of the show, the way you play it. I mean, it's just natural. You have the natural affinity to take on this kind of comedy, which is not easy. I mean, that must have been what was scary to all of you in the beginning too, is trying to recreate something that people have seen.
Yeah, and that was, obviously when we're recreating the old episode, mostly the Fred and Ethel fight episode, right, then that was the only time that we really were called on to, be impressionists and do mimicry. The rest of the time, Aaron kept telling us not to worry too much about looking and sounding exactly like the character or the actors, the character / actors. It's they're like 4 steps down the rabbit hole. But yeah, those were, I think, in a way, the most challenging, but also the most fun for all of us was recreating those little scenes, little snippets from the original show.
Yeah, I have to say, how to pick a good script. When you look at your filmography, these are really good. Juno and Thank You for Smoking and Whiplash, obviously, and on and on. I mean, you're picking these things. So what's your process as an actor here in choosing what you want to do?
Well, I mean, it sounds like just an oversimplification, but it's just, if it's there on the page, then that's all I want. And by there, I mean, not only is it something that I think is good writing, and an interesting story or a funny story or a dramatically moving story or whatever, or all of the above. And then is it a character that I find interesting, compelling? And then, sometimes the answer to both of those is yes, but I look further and I go, I'm not sure I'm really capable of doing this as well as I think it should be done. And sometimes I pass on things that are good just because I think there are other actors out there who would be a better fit or would do it better. But yeah, at the end of the day, for better and mostly for better, I think. I hope it's all about what's on the page and less about who's producing it, or even who's directing it sometimes, obviously I have some directors that I've worked with multiple times and will always answer the phone when they call. And but I also really enjoy, Aaron Sorkin, for example, obviously one of the great screenwriters of our generation. And now this is his third feature film as a director. And he really felt like a really complete filmmaker on the set, and I had complete confidence in him.
When you look at IMDb, 200 roles. I mean, you have the kind of filmography now of these, like a John Carradine, or these veteran actors who worked for decades and decades. You like to work, is what I'm going to get at here.
Well, I do. But to be fair, I don't think John Carradine. I probably 40 or 50 of those are probably cartoons. So some of it is like show up for a day or two, and it's another check mark on your IMDb, but it's not, it's not, I'm not just out there trying to get to 300 credits. I hope I'm still trying to, just now that I'm in the position, the insanely fortunate position to be able to pick and choose the roles I want to do. I hope I'm picking good and interesting and challenging things, like being the Ricardos.
And the yellow M&M.
And the yellow M&M, of course, now and forever. I think Billy West, who's the red M&M, and I, we've got to be going on 30 years.
Yeah.
It's been a very long running sweet gig.
What is that like to play? I mean, you have done so much voiceover work, which you just alluded to there. And you're just so great in so many distinctive kind of voice roles here. I mean, what's the trick of that?
Well, it's Billy, refers to it as the theater of the mind. It's obviously a very similar sort of skill set and experience. Helps, but for me it's just often literally closing my eyes and kind of visualizing that. And oftentimes in animation you don't actually have the opportunity to play your scene with the other characters. A lot of the time you're just in a booth by yourself, but there's a certain sort of freedom in that sometimes too. And then you also, at least in my experience, more than with live camera acting, I think I feel the freedom to go more extreme, in terms of making adjustments, and then trust that the director is going to be able to find something that with a through line that works. And I don't know, I guess there's less fear of having egg on your face since it's just your voice, and it's usually supposed to be silly anyway.
Yeah, it's so interesting. This year's Oscars, it's interesting. They just announced this week this Twitter fan favorite, and they're having people vote via Twitter since Monday, I believe, for their favorite movie. Doesn't have to be nominated or anything, just a movie from 2021. Right now, almost the only two that are mentioned is Zack Snyder's Justice League and Spider-Man No Way Home. It is a, back and forth. And I'm trying to think, what's the connection here?
Yeah.
You.
Coincidence? I don't think so. It's
J.K. Simmons,
me and my mustache. It's yeah.
But I mean, to be in things like that fans just are devouring. I would look at Spider-Man still going so strong, now number 3 of all time domestically, and you've been in that series since Sam Raimi cast you in that character, and then
thank you, Sam.
What's it like to be in a role like that in a movie like that that's seen so widely?
Well, it's obviously a huge blessing, and particularly with that character, it's I show up for, depending on the film, 3 days, maybe a couple of weeks, and kind of, pepper in my comic relief thing, which we had such a great time with in Sam's original trilogy. And he always gave us the latitude to improvise and play around and have fun. And then, and then I wasn't in the middle installment, the Andrew Garfield. And it never occurred to me that they would call and ask for J. Jonah Jameson, to come back. And then when they did, I was so excited, and went and met John and, the creative team. And it's been, the blessing continues. It's big fun. And I feel like I get, all of the fun for about 1% of the work that everybody else is putting in on those movies.
But it's a great character. I've seen the No Way Home now twice, and I'm watching you, and you just, the way they use that, you may have worked 3 days or something, but it's throughout, and it's so interesting the way he pops in. I mean, you got to have him. I don't know why you weren't in the other two, but you should have been.
Hey, I think I'm going to be in more. So fingers crossed.
There's a little scoop. I had the honor of interviewing all 3 Spider-Men that have played that.
Oh, that's so cool
here, and it was very cool. I kept trying to get that. There's going to be more, right? That we're going to get more, because it just gets better and better. And you're back playing Commissioner James Gordon. That's what you're doing in Glasgow and in Batgirl right now, right? Is that right?
Yeah, and James Gordon, for people who are not DC comic nerds, Commissioner Gordon, formerly Detective Gordon, is the father of Barbara Gordon, well, also the husband of Barbara Gordon. Gets a little confusing, but we call the younger one Babs or Bugs, and she becomes Batgirl. I hope that wasn't a spoiler. My seat didn't get electrified, so I guess I'm allowed to say that.
I remember well in talking to you a few times during the year that you won the Oscar for Whiplash on the circuit, as they say, where we run into each other or do interviews. And how did that change you? That's always a question people who win an Oscar or something like that get. Did it change you, or what did it do for you personally to win?
I like to think it didn't, change me. I think it, and look, I was already, I think, what was that, 7 years ago, I was 60 years old, so, and I'd been, started out with a very humble career, and very gradually had a series of, good fortune. And I find myself already having a career that I could never have dreamed of before, even before the Oscar and all the other awards. And it really just, sort of doubled or, exponentially increased the number of opportunities that were coming my way. So there were a lot more scripts to read. And a lot of that is kind of sifting through and going, nah. But that's, such a blessing for an actor who, spent the first 25 years of my career of having to audition for any job that I got. So really the really big noticeable difference was just the sheer number of opportunities coming my way, which, knock wood, are still coming.